Hello, everybody. I'm Madame Sensei. I teach Spanish, French, and Japanese out here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm real nerdy and I like to experiment with different teaching techniques, and I have been experimenting with the Harvard Project Zero thinking routines. And if you want to help me with this experiment or help me bounce ideas off of you, studio-nemo.com or ping me on the Duolingo Educators Network or on the Minecraft Education Ambassadors. The Harvard Project Zero thinking routines are located right here, and link is in the description, and we are still in the digging deeper into ideas subcategory, right here, red light, yellow light. This is a routine focusing students on signs of puzzles of truth. This one is harder for me to implement as written by Harvard Project Zero because the preponderance of my students are in lower levels and I'm only going to have a handful of 3 or 4-year students. So instead of reading editorial pages or wading through junk science claims or something, that takes a lot of prep work, a lot of embedded reading creations from me and everything for me to scaffold for the students. I'm going to use short mystery stories, which are accessible, or I can easily make them more accessible for my lower level students. And I can also reuse my prep work from year to year, which I really couldn't if I were using editorials. When you need to point out the grammar explicitly, like you're doing pop-up grammar, grammar translation method, audiolingual method, community language learning, or straight out of your textbook, I go through the story first and I footnote anything that I think the students are going to need to scaffold the vocabulary, okay? For verbs, it's enough to just footnote what the infinitive of the verb is. Students are going to figure out the tense through context. Japanese students are going to need furigana on everything, but usually anything you choose is going to have the furigana on it, but if it doesn't, be prepared to put it on. And you're going to have students circle or underline on their own copies the phrases that they think are sweeping generalizations or untrue. Okay, I'm going to give them colored pencils so they can mark red or yellow, and I also add green. A word of caution. Out of habit, the students are going to circle phrases that they don't understand instead of the ones that they think are trying to lead them astray. So make sure you give the directions in English so there's absolutely no misunderstanding, and maybe do a practice page with them. When you're teaching literature, culture, history, or art, or music, or food, I already told you how I'm using murder mysteries or just mystery stories. My second-year French students are usually electing to read Arsène Lupin. Japanese students, of course, have Lupin as well, or we can use Edogawa Rampo. I love his name, Edogawa Rampo, Edgar Allan Poe. Ha ha ha, it's a joke. He chose that as a pen name. One time we used Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney scene, which was just very funny, and the students loved doing that. For Spanish students, I'm only ever going to get first-year students, but there's a lot of Tom Alsop stories, especially in 21 Mini Cuentos, which are really perfect for this, and he's even translated that into French, and I like these stories a lot. They're very Twilight Zone-y stories, a lot of fun. So I took a page from Dylan Williams. He wrote a book, Embedded Formative Assessment, which is absolutely wonderful. And he has a formative assessment technique where he will have students indicate with colored disposable cups whether or not they understand. So they'll have a red cup or a green cup or a yellow cup, and then you can pace your lesson depending on that. But I really want the repetition, and I don't really have a lot of, I've got 36 students per each class next year. I don't have a lot of desk space for colored cups and stuff. So I'm going to use colored pencils, and that always works really well because I can easily plop a colored pencil box on each student's desk. But I want the repetition. I need the repetition. So I take the story and I read it, first of all, in a really direct method technique. I get really hammy. I draw pictures on the board as I'm reading. I grab puppets. I've got all my Project World dolls and stuff to grab. Whatever I need to do, act it out, whatever I need to do to get the meaning across. Okay, and then I'll let the students read it to themselves for a few minutes, and I give them the colored pencils at that point. And remind them again, you're not underlining stuff you don't understand, you're underlining what you think is true in green. I added green. What you think might be true in yellow, and what you think is absolutely the red herring in red, okay? And then I partner them up and have them read it aloud to each other. and compare if they agree or disagree on what they chose for their traffic lights. And then I read the whole thing to the class again, less hammy this time because hopefully they understand the story by now. So this is kind of almost like combining the direct method with Suggestopedia a little bit. Then I have the students, maybe if I want them to, they can hold up colored construction paper, which are easier to store than giant colored cups, or just have them indicate when they agree or disagree or whatever. This takes a really long time, so I don't do the whole story like this unless it's a Tom Alsop story, and I don't do it each day we read the story. But a lot of times I'll make an embedded reading that's just like a sum up. This is our story so far. We're about to come to the climax. Let me remind you last time in our episode of what went on in the classroom. And then I'll have the students work on that as kind of a review before we get to the solution of the locked door mystery or whatever was happening in the mystery. In our next episode, Reporter's Notebook.